In today's training, we're going to be talking about the rules and procedures for all drivers here at SandBox. Now, whether you're a contract driver or a company driver, these rules are going to apply to you. Now, this training is going to focus in a little bit more on our CDL drivers that drive tractor trailers. However, all of our rules for driving are pretty much going to be the same. So whether you are a tractor trailer driver or someone driving a pickup, a lot of these rules are going to apply to you. So let's go ahead and get into it. As a truck driver, your truck is your most valuable asset. And it's always a good idea to keep it neat and clean. For our SandBox company drivers, we do require that they keep the interior and exterior of their tractor neat and clean. Again, this is where you work. This is your office and is where you spend most of your time. So always try to keep your truck as neat and clean as possible. Also, for all SandBox trucks, we do have a no smoking policy. So if you're ever in a SandBox tractor, be sure to not smoke inside. If you ever do need to smoke, be sure to get out of the truck and close the doors and windows prior to smoking. Again, always respect your equipment. If you take care of your equipment, it will take care of you. Now, we can't require our contract drivers to keep the inside of their tractor clean. However, it is a good reminder to always keep your truck clean and neat. It is where you spend most of your time. So be sure to keep it neat and clean when needed. PPE, or personal protective equipment, is something that we require all of our operators, contractors, and company drivers to wear when at specific locations. Again, always speak with your supervisor prior to heading to any of these locations to see what the requirements may be. Now, there is a specific training on PPE that will show you exactly what our PPE that we use in the field looks like, as well as how to properly don it. Now, I'm going to go over a couple different scenarios and go over the PPE that may be required. For our SandBox facilities or our yards, we are always required to wear steel toe boots, reflective vests, safety glasses, a full brim hard hat or a bump cap in certain instances, and gloves when performing work. Again, here at SandBox, we have a glove policy. Any work that is ever performed, gloves must be worn. Now, on our well sites and loading facilities, the PPE that is required is a full brim hard hat, FR clothing, a reflective vest, steel toe footwear, impact rated gloves, safety glasses, hearing protection only if noise is 85 decibels or more, and also an H2S monitor may be required. Again, additional PPE may be required depending on the location that you're at. So always be sure to check and figure out what you need before you go. Now we're going to talk about pre and post trips on your tractor and trailer. Again, as a CDL driver, you are required by law to do pre and post trips on your equipment. Again, always make sure that whenever you are doing a pre or post trip, that you are in a safe and well-lit area. Again, pre and post trips should each take about 15 to 20 minutes to inspect everything on your truck and trailer. Be sure to do a full 360-degree walk around of your tractor trailer so that you can see if there's anything that may be broken, missing, or needs to be fixed. This is very important for you as a driver because it can save you from a ticket, injury, or even worse. Again, if you're using e-logs, be sure that you do your pre and post trips on them as well. Also, for your time, be sure to mark off the time that you worked on doing your pre and post trip in your logs. If you are a SandBox driver, be sure to do your DVIR or pre and post trip in Samsara. Again, if you need training on the Samsara app, there is a video on that to learn how to operate. Our dispatching system that we use to dispatch loads for SandBox is a mobile application on your cellular device. Now, as a CDL driver, it is illegal for you to use your cell phone while operating your motor vehicle. So, if you ever have to send any sort of communication, always be sure that your truck is parked and that you are in a safe area. Again, never operate your cell phone while driving or operating any sort of equipment. Any driver that is delivering to a SandBox location must be an approved driver. Whether they are contract drivers or company drivers, they must be an approved driver in our system. Now, what is an approved driver? Well, an approved driver is somebody that has gone through our full orientation and has all of the necessary credentials to enter that specific location, whether that be PEC, H2S training, or any customer specific training that may be required. Now, any passengers that may be in the vehicle with that driver must also meet these same requirements and also have all of the necessary credentials that may be needed for that specific location. Again, make sure that everybody is approved in your vehicle prior to heading to location. Now we're going to talk a little bit about loading facilities and some of the rules that may apply whenever you're getting your box loaded at a loading facility. When arriving at a loading facility, there's a few key things to keep in mind. The first and foremost is to make sure that you have all of the information needed to be able to pick up the load, whether that be a PO, a pickup number, anything like that. Be sure to have all of this information prior to getting to the loading facility. Also, once you're at the loading facility, be sure to check in with them and follow their procedure. You can always ask the people at the loading facility what their specific procedure is. Again, every loading facility may be a little bit different. Once you arrive at the loading facility, one thing to always keep in mind is to check your slide gate. The driver is the person that is responsible for checking the slide gate prior to loading. Again, there is a separate training that shows you how the slide gate actually works and operates. Also, it will show you how to close it if you find an open slide gate. So be sure to refer to that training. Once you've arrived at the loading facility and checked in with them, you may be required to open the hatch located on the top side of your box. Again, this hatch is how we're going to load your box at the facility. Now, some facilities may require the driver to open the hatch, and some facilities may do it for you. If the facility opens your hatch for you, you're required to follow any procedures that they have while they are opening your hatch. So if this is the case, be sure to ask what their procedure is and follow along. If the driver is responsible for opening the hatch, there are two main systems that we utilize to get on top of the box and open the hatch. The first is our ladder system. Ladders are located on all of our chassis and are designed to go on the side of the box and then climb up to access the hatch. The second system is a safe rack system. This system may be at some loading facilities and is a push-down device that goes over the top of the box with a cage around it. Again, there is a different training that teaches you about how to properly use the ladder system and safe rack system. Be sure to follow along with that training to know the ins and outs of both systems. Again, it is always the driver's responsibility to make sure that the proper steps are followed and that no damage is done during the loading process. Also, if you're using a ladder, be sure to always inspect it prior to use and never leave the ladder on the box. Once the hatch is open on your box, you can then begin following the loading procedures for that specific loading facility. Again, every loading facility does it a little bit different and may have different procedures to loading. Again, whether you're loading out of a rail car or a silo, each procedure may be a little bit different. So be sure, as the driver, to ask questions if you don't know how to load at this particular facility. One tip that we always give to drivers is how to load a box. This here is a diagram on the best way and best practice that we've kind of found to load our boxes. This specific drawing is a 3-drop process and shows the different drops and how much for each drop. Most loading facilities have seen this diagram and understand. For this particular process, you actually pull up as you get loaded and drop in different locations on the hatch. Again, always ask the loading facility how to properly load at their facility. Again, here at SandBox, we always try to load at least 43 to 45,000 pounds per box. Again, try to get as close to those numbers as possible. You as the driver are responsible for getting the correct amount of sand in the box. If a loading facility does not load you to your full volume, always check with either dispatch or your supervisor to see if it is okay to leave the loading facility with less than what you were supposed to load with. Again, always try to get to that number that we require our drivers to bring. Again, that's 43 to 45,000 pounds in the box. Now, for some of our customers, they may require that a sand sample be delivered with the box once it reaches location. Now, what is a sand sample? A sand sample is a small portion of sand, about a handful's worth, of sand from the inside of your box that you're delivering. This is then placed in a baggie and delivered to the person that signed your paperwork on location. Now, on that baggie, you're required to have the box number, the BOL number, the sand ticket number, and the sand type. Be sure to write that on there with a Sharpie or a marker. Again, be sure that it's not a type of marker that may wash off easily. Again, this sand sample is then delivered to the person that signed your paperwork. Once you've loaded your box, be sure to get any necessary paperwork from the loading facility. Again, every single load should have a sand ticket attached with our BOL, whether it be digital or a paper copy. Always be sure that you have that sand ticket prior to leaving the loading facility. After loading is complete, the driver is responsible for making sure that the hatch on the top of the box gets closed. Now, like we spoke about before, some facilities may close the hatch for you. However, it is always the driver's responsibility to ensure that that hatch is closed. If this is the case, go down the road a little bit and check the hatch. Now, anytime that you're closing a hatch, you want to make sure that there is no sand in the hinges. If there's sand in the hinges, it will not close properly and it won't be able to be latched down. A handy tool to always keep with you is a hand brush or a broom. This allows for you to get the sand that may be in those hinges out. Also, as the driver, you're responsible to make sure that there is no large amounts of sand on the top of the box. Always clean off your box prior to getting on the road. Again, as the driver, you are responsible for making sure that all of the sand is in the box and not on top of it. Now we want to talk a little bit about the well site and some of the stuff that you're going to see out on the well site and some of the rules that are going to apply to you while you're on site. Now we're going to talk about speed limits for tractor trailers. So, again, whether you are a SandBox company driver or a contractor for SandBox, these speed limits apply to you on all locations. Now, this particular section is going to talk about tractor trailers. However, the same speed limits still apply for our pickup trucks. So, for any SandBox yards, well sites, and loading facilities, the speed limit is 3 miles per hour maximum. Again, this should be about walking speed. Also, when you're driving around in a dusty yard, try to minimize your fan kicking up and kicking any dust up. Next, we're going to talk about our lease roads. Now again, lease roads are any road that leads up to a well site. Typically, they're dirt roads. These roads have a speed limit maximum for SandBox of 15 miles per hour. Again, if it is posted at a lower speed limit for that lease road, be sure to follow that. However, we never exceed 15 miles per hour. Now, for any major roads, highways, state roads, or anything like that, be sure to always follow the posted speed limits and also obey any traffic laws. I want to talk a little bit more about lease roads and the importance of keeping a reduced speed while driving on them. Again, here at SandBox, we have a 15 mile per hour maximum speed limit on all lease roads. Again, if it's ever posted at a lower speed limit, be sure to follow the lower speed limit. However, always keep 15 miles per hour at a maximum. Now, the reason for keeping a reduced speed on lease roads is that lease roads are typically made of dirt and rocks. And when driving down them, it creates a bunch of dust. Also, during rainy seasons, lease roads can get extremely muddy. So always be sure to be very careful when driving down lease roads. One good idea to do is to speak with other drivers when they're coming off a lease road to see if there's any potential hazards that you may need to be aware of before driving on the lease road. Next, one thing to always keep in mind is to never pass a moving vehicle on a lease road. If you're going to pass, be sure that the vehicle is stopped and parked before passing them, or that they allow for you to pass them. Always keep in mind on lease roads to keep it slow. You never know who's watching. So always be sure to keep your speed under 15 miles per hour and drive safe and courteous. When delivering to a location or a well site, one thing that you may be required to do is to stage or wait to deliver your load. Now, this doesn't happen on all paths, but it can happen at times. So, one thing to keep in mind is staging is a line or a queue. Again, the first ones in are the first ones to deliver, and so on and so forth. So again, always be courteous if you're staged at a well site and never pass up any trucks that were there before you. Again, if a truck is parked and does not move up with the line or the queue, go and knock on their door to see if they're awake. Try to speak with them to see if they're going to move forward or if you may be able to pass them. Again, whenever you are parked at a particular staging area, you may be required to chalk your tires when parked. Again, always speak with your supervisor prior to going to location so that you know if this may be a rule. When arriving on location, one important thing to keep in mind is that every well site can be a little bit different, and each one of them can have their own site-specific rules or procedures. So again, it's important to always ask your supervisor prior to the first time that you head to a well site about what the rules may be on this particular site. Now, some key things to kind of keep in mind and maybe ask your supervisor are, what is the traffic situation on location? Can I back on location with a spotter or without a spotter? Who's unlocking my twist locks? Can the driver get out of his tractor while on site? What kind of PPE is required on the location? Again, these are just some key questions to ask your supervisor or other drivers prior to the first time heading to location. When you're on location or the well site, it can be a very busy place, as you can see from this picture here. There's a lot of different operations going on simultaneously, and a lot of people moving around as well. So as a driver, when you pull up to location, be aware of people walking around or things that may be moving. Also, be sure to keep your speed limit at that 3 miles per hour or just walking speed. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're getting unloaded is the safe zones. If the driver is allowed to get out of his tractor to unlock the twist locks, be sure that you are in a safe zone once your box is being delivered. Again, you can see from this diagram here, your safe zones, when being unloaded, are at the back and the front of the tractor trailer. Again, make sure you know where your safe zones are on location prior to heading to site. Also, approved safe zones may change during the course of operations, so don't be scared to ask the operators on site or your supervisor. Again, if you have a question, be sure to ask our operators on site so that you can make sure that you're following all of the rules and policies on this particular site. On some of our locations, ground guides may be required to guide trucks around while moving around location. Again, always check with your supervisor or the operators on location to see if ground guides may be required on the site that you're at. Now, if ground guides are required, be sure to follow all of their hand signals. That person is there to guide you and put you in a specific area. So if they tell you to stop, be sure to stop. If they tell you to move left or right, do that as well. Again, each site can be a little bit different, and some sites may require 2 ground guides, 1 ground guide, or even none in some instances. Again, if that ground guide is guiding you, they're responsible for putting you where they want you. So be sure to follow their hand signals and don't move any faster than they move. Again, keep with them and make sure that you're following everything that they're showing you to do. When you're on site getting your box unloaded, it is important to keep in mind that our dance floor is off limits. Again, no one is allowed on the dance floor without following the dance floor enter and exit policy. SandBox does have a zero tolerance policy for any dance floor infractions. Again, a dance floor infraction is any time that somebody enters the dance floor without following that policy. Again, as the driver, you should stay in your designated safe zones while the loading and unloading process is taking place. So again, always stay in your safe zones while on location. As the driver, you are the one that is responsible for ensuring that your twist locks are locked. Again, all 4 twist locks on the chassis should be locked at all times when a box is on your chassis. Again, as a CDL driver, you are responsible for securing your load. If you are at a location where the driver is not allowed to get out of your truck, once you are off of the location, be sure to pull over in a safe area and check your twist locks to ensure that all 4 are locked. Again, whether you drive an inch, a mile, or 500 miles, be sure that all 4 of your locks are locked. Once you have delivered and completed a load, it is your responsibility as the driver to be sure that all paperwork is submitted. Again, whether your paperwork is digital or paper format, it is your responsibility as the driver to make sure that it is properly submitted through our application. Now, anytime that you're needing to still fill out paperwork, be sure to do that off of location. If you do it right after you leave location, be sure to pull over in a safe area and fill out any remaining fields and then submit it. Again, as the driver, it is your responsibility to make sure that your paperwork gets submitted so that you can be paid promptly for your loads. I hope that this training has helped to show you how to safely drive and operate out in the field. Now again, anytime that you're going to a loading facility, a well site, or even one of our SandBox yards, make sure that you're following along with all of the rules that you've learned in this video. Also, if you ever have any questions prior to arriving at a location, make sure to ask your supervisor or some of our operators out on site. They can help to make sure that you have a safe day out in the field.